Alright, so I'm back with another video, and in this video I'm going to be going over a game I played about 7 years ago, back when my rating was only 1800 or so. It was 1804 at the time, and I was playing against a master, one that I'd actually played before, and he beat me in 12 moves when I was in 8th grade. So I was looking to have a little bit of revenge in this game. The time control was G115, D5, and I had the white pieces in this game against 2161 Master, and let's just see how it goes. So I go D4, he goes D6, C4, E5, Knight F3. So, I could go for the end game. I don't know if I really want to do that against someone stronger than me. He's probably going to outplay me. So I go Knight F3 and E4, Knight F5, or sorry, Knight G5 and F5. So basically, he's gaining a lot of space on the king side, but in return, he is weakening his king side a little bit. So basically, I just have to try and prove that his king side's a little bit weak. So I go Knight C3, Bishop E7, hitting my knight. I just drop my knight back, and then I look to reposition it to F4 at the right time. He goes Knight F6 here, just a standard developing move, and then I go E3. He castles, I go Knight F4, and then he goes C6, which is a pretty flexible move. So he's looking to play D5 and strengthen his center. He's also looking to bring his queen out. He's also looking to keep my pieces out of D5. So this is a pretty flexible move. So I go D5, which is structurally probably not a great move because it gives up the E5 and C5 squares. But it does stop him from going D5 himself and getting a big pawn center. And it kind of isolates these pawns from these pawns. So it does have some purpose, although I'm not really sure this is the best move, since I think he can more readily use the E5 square or C5 square with his knight versus the D4 square, which I can't use so easily. I'd have to reposition my knight kind of awkwardly to use it, and then Knight E6 is an idea, but it's not really playable yet because of Bishop takes E6, D takes E6, and Queen C8, and he's just going to get that pawn back. So I'm not really so sold on this move, but regardless, he goes G5, I go Knight H5, and we trade the knights. And then after Knight to D7, looking to bring his knight to E5, maybe F6, maybe C5, I just drop my queen all the way back to D1. And while the engine initially says that this is a mistake, if you let the engine sit for a little bit, it does say it's the best move. And the reason I played this was simply just because I didn't want my queen to kind of get cut off sides on the king side. I didn't want him to play some form of move like G4 and cut my queen off from returning, and then maybe there's some way he can trap my queen. It's not really clear, but I was a little bit nervous about my queen running out of squares over there. So he goes Knight E5, simply just putting his knight on a good square, and then I go B3. And then the point of bringing my queen back is now after queen to A5, I can just play queen to D2 and stop this pin. So the knight was pinned and it was attacked, so I can just defend it, and I'm looking to play bishop to B2, put my bishop on the long diagonal, where I think will be pretty useful, and then I'm just going to castle queenside most likely. So he goes bishop to F6, and I go bishop to B2. And then after C5, both of us missed a tactic in this position. So I missed knight takes E4, which would simply win a pawn. Notice how after knight takes E4, his queen is attacked. So he doesn't have time to play F takes E4. So he's either going to have to retreat his queen or play queen takes D2, and if he plays queen takes D2, I can play knight takes D2, and I've simply won a pawn in this position. And unfortunately, both of us missed this in the game. Clearly, he missed it since he played C5, and I missed it because my next move was bishop to E2. And then his next move was bishop to D7, and we missed knight takes E4 again. I mean, I didn't play it on the previous move, and I didn't see it on this move either. And I just castled queenside, which is inferior to knight takes e4. However, it's still relatively equal. And I think at this point he realizes knight takes e4 could be a problem, so he plays queen to c7, dropping his queen back. But I feel pretty comfortable in this position because I've been able to put my bishop on the long diagonal. I've been able to castle, and my king is actually relatively safe here for now. And now I'm looking to play moves like f3, h4, stuff like that to try and break open the king side, where I can bring my rooks over to the king side and try and attack him possibly. So I go f3 here, looking to break open the king side if possible. And he goes e takes f3, I go g takes f3 because I want the g file. And I'm starting to really like my position here. And he goes knight to g6. It says it's an inaccuracy. I think it's still probably the best move. And now I really have to look to break open the king side somehow. So I got to think, what does black want to do here? After knight to e6, he's unleashing his bishop on the long diagonal. But he's also, I think he's looking to play a move like f4 possibly. And I don't know if I really want to allow that all too much. He's probably just going to bring his rook to e8 and use the e file. And I really need to start thinking about how I can start getting at his king. So I go f4 here. The idea is I want to try and open up the g file towards his king, since his king's a little bit unsafe here. He goes rook a e8, I go rook d g1, and then he goes g4, trying to close the g file. Unfortunately, he's not really able to close the g file here because I can play h3. And then after h5, h takes g4, h takes g4. Now I have this nice h file for my rook, and I can start invading. So I go rook to h6, and he goes king g7, and I go knight to b5, which is not the best move. So the best move here is obviously just rook g to h1. I'm not really sure why I think I just got scared of rook h8 and the possible trades on the h-file. And the problem is after rook g to h1, rook h8, I would have had to find either knight e4 or knight b5 in this position. And it thinks it's relatively strong for me. However, this is not so easy to see because after knight e4, f takes e4, bishop takes f6, king takes f6, queen c3 check, it is winning for me, but it's a little bit harder to see. So I went knight to b5 right away, which is still decent for white. I'm about +2 here, but I don't think it's as strong as before. So he goes bishop takes b5, and here in this position, I need to either play rook gh1 or rook takes g6 check. And unfortunately, I didn't quite find either of those moves, and I play bishop takes f6, which is just a mistake. Fortunately for me, it's not losing or anything, and I still have winning chances, but he has a chance to equalize or draw in this position. So he goes rook takes f6, which is the correct move, and then after rook gh1, he goes bishop to d7. So this is a very interesting position because all things considered, he is up a full piece right now. However, if you look at the engine eval on the side, it's reading zeros right now, which is very interesting. And I go rook h7, and after king g8, I go queen to b2. So I'm hitting his rook right now. And if he moves the rook, I would suspect that things would go quite poorly for him. So if he goes, let's say he goes like rook f7. Rook f7 is going to lead to mate after rook h8, knight takes h8, and then pick your favorite, either queen takes h8 or rook takes h8 will be mate. So he can't move this rook. So he needs to either play queen to d8 or rook e to f8 to defend this rook. However, one of them is losing and one of them is equal. And unfortunately for him, he plays the wrong one here. Queen to d8 is equal. supposedly. And after rook e to f8, white is winning. So if you want to, pause the video for a minute and try and figure out what you would play as white here. Because I really uncork a nice move here that leads to a decisive attack for white. Even though I'm down a piece, I've got some serious pressure around his king, and I'm able to find some nice tactics here to finish the game. All right, so in the game I went bishop takes g4. So as you can see, the engine gives me a brilliant move here. I'm down a full piece, and I'm giving up another full piece. And the idea is to clear the second rank and play queen to h2 and get the Alekine's gun on the h file. Alekine's gun being when you have a rook, queen, and rook stacked. It's a very powerful organization of pieces. And after f takes g4, I go queen to h2. And he's got serious problems here because my immediate threat is rook g7 followed by queen h7 mate, and there's not really much you can do about that, unfortunately. The only thing that you can do to stop mate is to move this bishop somewhere and give up the queen. So he goes queen a5 in the game, which unfortunately loses to rook g7 check, and then he resigned. But I was really proud of this tactical sequence at the end with bishop takes g4 and queen h2, which is not the most intuitive sacrifice, but I really went all in, and it was able to pay off. So I thought this was a pretty good game, pretty nice attacking game. We both missed some simple tactics, and it wasn't necessarily the best played game, but I thought this was a pretty instructive attack, just opening the king side with my pawns and then using my open files to my advantage in order to get a nice attack. So I thought this was a nice game, and I thought you guys might want to see it. So that's all for this video, but I'll keep making videos, and I'll see you guys soon.